Hi there and welcome to Belfast High School History Department on YouTube. This little video is going to concentrate on President Woodrow Wilson's domestic policies from 1913 to 1921. So President Wilson's regarded as being absolutely remarkable in what he achieved both domestically and in foreign policy. He transformed America at home and abroad in his tenure in office. And this video is going to really focus on his domestic record. So Wilson was part of what you would call the trio of progressive presidents at the start of the 20th century. You had Teddy Roosevelt, you had Taft as well too, and despite the three of them coming from different parties, with Taft and Roosevelt being Republicans and Wilson being a Democrat, they all believed in this possibility, this progressive reform possibility of changing America for the better through the use of politics and laws to control the excesses of rampant capitalism and industrialisation that had been going on throughout America towards the end of the 19th century and the start of the 20th century. Social reforms, they argued, they could protect the average American and promote progress and a better society of all, not just for all, not just the rich and the privileged. Wilson was a really activist president. He sought to promote his progressive principles, and he helped to do so in a number of ways. So we're going to start to look through these different policies. So firstly, fresh from his amazing election victory, he actually started to tackle tariff duties. Now, this is something which had been protected all the way since the American Civil War in the 1860s. And tariffs were basically government taxes on imported goods. This was done to protect American industry and to reduce foreign competition as well too, and it's something that's still argued about in the United States today. High tariffs were, they're supposed to support many big American industries, and they were highly supported as well by many big industrialists. However, Wilson knew that tariffs also kept some products artificially high in terms of prices, and they prevented effective competition. The winner in reality was always big business, and the loser was the American consumer in his book. So what happened was he supported the Underwood-Simmons Act of 1913, which reduced some tariffs from 40% to 25%. And Wilson proposed to pay for this here tax shortfall through the use of the newly passed income tax, which would really impact on the rich. Okay. So Wilson was really impressive in his drive for this reform. What he did was actually he made a real big point of actually addressing Congress himself personally. The first time I think since John Adams that's actually happened, and he really did explain to Congress why he supported tariff reform, and this really helped to win over Congress as well. So his low tariffs were very popular in some areas, particularly the South and the West. Wilson's also showed his commitment to the working class in the United States, and he did this through very early on actually through his division of the Department of Commerce and Labour, and he appoints a trade union official, William Wilson, in charge of Labour at the time as well too, so it's quite a major appointment. At the end of 1913, Wilson also pushes for his most ambitious act of all. It's the Federal Reserve Act, and what he's aiming to do here is trying to reduce the power of American bankers, and he's creating a central United States bank, a US central bank, a federal bank. Okay, interest rates could then be controlled from the central bank. Money supply could then be regulated, determined about how well the economy is doing or not doing. Credit could be easily attainable for small businesses and farms, and banks would also have to hold assets to pay for any economic crisis as well. This helped to regulate the American money supply and remove some of the domination of those huge big corporations that had dominated American banking. So Wilson also continued with Roosevelt's antitrust regulations as well too. So the Clayton Antitrust Act exempted labour organisations and farmers, which they were very pleased with. It also set about tackling prohibitive anti-competitive practices such as price fixing and interlocking directorates, where you would have big American industrialists on several different boards with the aim of actually perhaps creating monopolies within that as well. The Federal Trade Commission was actually set up, and this gave gave teeth because it allowed the ability to publish and shine a light on shine a spotlight on corruption throughout United States industries. Wilson also looked to protect the vulnerable in American society. He supported votes for women. He appointed the first Jewish Supreme Court judge, Louis Brandeis, who himself was a progressive and a reformer, who had campaigned against the exploitation of women and children. Wilson was actually momentarily as well successful in eliminating child labour through laws. However, this was overturned by the Supreme Court in 1922, believe it or not. Wilson was also instrumental in protecting railway workers. He actually sent in troops to protect strikers, and the subsequent Adamson Act actually helped to secure those railway workers an 8-hour working day. Again, a very impressive achievement. The one limitation that's very clear about Wilson is the lack of civil rights legislation to protect African Americans. In fact, African Americans under Wilson, a Southerner, were more harshly discriminated against under his watch. It's very famous that he really approved of Griffith's Birth of a Nation, that film that really did lead to a huge growth in the popularity of the Ku Klux Klan. But for a president really who had driven so much social reform and stood up for the oppressed, this contradiction really does stand out as a blemish on what otherwise would be a very impressive domestic record. Hopefully this helps in understanding his domestic policy. Thanks very much for listening.